Alright, welcome to Make a Path Presents. I'm Ronnie Hayes, and today, unfortunately, we are going to talk about The Walking Dead issue 191. Now, we're jumping neck deep straight into this bitch. So, if you haven't read the comic, we're about to talk about something that is the greatest spoiler in the history of The Walking Dead universe. So, you literally got 5 seconds to get your ass out of here, go read the issue, and then come back to either praise or condemn it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, jumping neck deep into this, we're going to go right to what you guys want to discuss, which I think is a beautiful disaster. Now, I say beautiful because there's a lot that harkens back, a lot of symbolism that I would have to take a few more days to make sure I cover it all. If I did like a deep dive into all the symbolism, I'm sure I'm missing some, but one of the most obvious is the line by Rick saying, "We are not the Walking Dead." Now, we know this is exactly drawn to the way he said it previously, where he said in issue, I believe it was 24, "We are the Walking Dead." Now, it goes beyond that even. Rick's speech after Pamela declares war, and Rick says, whoa, hold on, we could talk about this, and her soldiers don't fight, because it's not just fighting this group that we just met, it's also fighting and killing Mercer and other soldiers that they've become friends with within the Commonwealth. But Rick goes on this speech in present day, in issue 191, and he talks about how we're not stealing time from the dead, we are not the Walking Dead. And if you look back at issue 24, Rick and Tyrese had this fight. It was after Dexter tried to take over the prison. Rick shot him in the back or the side of the head in cold blood, killing him. And they couldn't get over this. They didn't want to, our group didn't want to lose our humanity. They didn't want Rick to be the leader. They thought he was going a little bit crazy. And he goes off with this speech. And just to compare them, because I think this is part of the beautiful disaster, let me just read a line of what he says and compare it to present day. He says, "We are among them. And when we finally give up, we become them. We are living on borrowed time. Every minute of our life is a minute we steal from them. You see them out there. You know that when you die, we become them. You think we hide behind walls to protect ourselves from the Walking Dead? Don't you get it? We are the Walking Dead." In present day, in issue 191, he says, "This world has scarred us mentally and physically. We carry those scars with us each and every day. They serve as a reminder of what we've lived through, what we've done to survive, what others have done to us to survive. Sacrifices made, all to get us here, to this point. To have so many of us here to be safe, to be close to the way things were before. I used to think we had to put our humanity on hold, embrace a savageness in order to survive, because our world, the one we knew, was never coming back." This is calling back to issue 24 that we're speaking of. Rick says, "I was wrong. We are on the road. I can see our future ahead of us, and it is bright. We no longer live surrounded by the dead. We are not among them, not living on borrowed time. We do not live minute to minute in minutes stolen from the dead. We can be happy, we can be content, we can have peace, we can live again. We are not the Walking Dead." So this is touching directly back to issue 24's speech, which was about being more savage and doing what you have to do, and we will not return to the old world where we're dropping our kids off at school and yada yada yada. The dead were living right outside their gates. You can even see them directly through the fence. So this is a direct, purposeful callback to that issue. On top of that, they were currently at war with the governor, the evil governor. They're currently dealing with a governor, Pamela Milton. Now, this is coming completely full circle. That's why if you ask me, is Rick dead? Yes, 100% Rick will die. This will kill him. We will get into other possibilities later, but Rick is dead. This is it. This is his story coming full circle. And it even touches with him holding up his arm. That arm was taken off by the governor. This speech, "We are not the Walking Dead," touching back to his old speech, bringing his full story arc to a close. He has a moment with Michonne. He has a moment with Carl. A beautiful moment where he says, I'm proud to have you as a son. Carl says, I'm proud to have you as a father. Carl watches his father walk away, the last time he'll ever see his father again, most likely alive. And later in issue 191, we'll cover it more in a second, but Spencer comes in with a silencer. Probably the first time I was ever actually worried about a character. I was like, Kirkman, don't do this, not this way. I will probably repeat this a couple times in the video. Yes, I fully believe Rick Grimes should and would die eventually. It all matters on how and what it did for the progression of the story. We'll probably touch base on that again, but let me get right to his death. So Spencer shoots him in the chest, directly in the heart. Even if he survives from this, it would be utterly ridiculous. But the next panels, again, were purposefully done. Keep in mind, this is all calling back to the governor from the earlier issues, and what happened in those earlier issues. Rick got shot by a ricochet bullet in the side, and he fell down, collapsing in front of the survivors, and one of the covers actually mirrors an image from issue 191. Here it is. Again, we could go in depth and discuss a lot of the symbolism and the callbacks and Rick's story arc fully, but that would take more time. This is an issue review. So just to point out the beautiful aspects that I got from this, again, I feel like it's a beautiful disaster. Coming full circle is a beautiful writing technique. I feel like we're seeing it more and more, and it's kind of losing a little bit of its magic in a way, but that's besides the point. This is Rick Grimes' story coming full circle. I wouldn't be surprised if he even falls into a coma and doesn't make it out of the coma. I wouldn't be surprised if he is shot. Again, this is linking up to the previous governor's story, connecting it full circle with the current governor's story, and then maybe to usher him out of the story, he dies in a hospital bed. That would actually mirror him getting shot. And actually, right now, it currently mirrors him getting shot at the very start of this story in issue 1. Do not forget, everything is done right now purposefully. This is issue 191. It is also the end of Compendium 4, I believe issue 192, which would show the reveal of what happens with Rick. That is the end of Compendium 4, and then issue 193, we know we're going to go away from the Commonwealth, and we're actually going to check in on Negan. That will be the beginning of Compendium 5. That will be the beginning of a new story arc, hence Rick's story covering the first 4 compendiums. Getting shot in issue 1, then again getting shot in issue 24 by the evil governor, well, the conflict anyway. He didn't shoot him directly. And finally, coming full circle, getting shot with the present-day governor storyline. It's the governor's son, Sebastian. However, he won't make it out of this one. Taking Rick out of the equation, I think this issue, even the storytelling aspect to it, and the story arc in general coming back around, again, I think this is a beautifully done issue. Taking the one negative out that I think really hurts the issue and the story that Kirkman is telling, but I think overall, and connected to the past and the callbacks and all that, I think it's a really beautiful issue, and I was actually thoroughly enjoying the issue up until the point that it was Rick getting clapped. And I'll be honest, again, let me point this out. I believe Rick should die within this story, and I'm fine if we focus on more of an ensemble cast, as well as Carl Grimes. Carl Grimes is a Grimes legacy character. We should have him continue on. We've been following him since he was a kid. We need to have, maybe not have him as the main, but an ensemble with a highlight on certain characters like Carl. Now, coming back to the disaster part of this storytelling, it is fully rooted for me in the world building. The world building here is cheap and flimsy. We have this community of 50,000 people strong, yet it comes to a leader of one and her son. We've been told over and over again that the structure of the Commonwealth is, let's say, 100 rich people living comfortably that barely have to work. They're on top, yet we have all these thousands on the bottom. I think it's even a higher number than that. Let's say there's at least 1,000 rich, wealthy people living comfortably on top, and then there's 49,000. I mean, that's still a big percentage of a difference. And you're telling me that in this world building we saw what? Lance and another guy, the bald guy, in her cabinet, in Pamela's cabinet, the governor's cabinet, and we didn't see any other rich people that were not happy about this redistribution of wealth, this restructuring of what's going on in the Commonwealth. It's perfectly acceptable for Rick Grimes, a reason for everything to be changing right now. He is going to just walk comfortably and safely down the street. This world building is some of the worst writing I've ever seen in my life, and I get why it happened, because we don't care about the other people in the Commonwealth that aren't, main characters. I get it. I understand it. I'm sure every writer is going to make this mistake one way or another. I'm probably going to do it myself after even criticizing it. It happens because you don't want to focus on some characters that are, that don't really have a purpose. But the Commonwealth storyline for me has been kind of, it's been a bit of a drag. I haven't really been connected to it. However, now I'm looking back thinking, why wasn't some of the main focus on Sebastian? Bring him up as a Joffrey from Game of Thrones, where he is just a weak little shit alone, but he has some type of army or power behind him. With Joffrey in a Game of Thrones, he was the king. He had the crown, he had the throne, he had the army, he had the soldiers, he had people backing him. He was powerful because of the people around him. We don't get that from Sebastian. He's just this little shithead weasel. And again, this is for the main reward of watching the weasel get what he deserves. Rick fucking Grimes is gonna die because some weaselly piece of shit snuck in his bedroom and shot him in the chest with a silencer. Rick motherfucking Grimes is gonna go out like that. This played out in a way where there was no one else, there was no concern. It was all happy and everyone's loving it, and it was only Pamela and Sebastian who were pretty much really giving a huff about the change. The only two people out of 50,000. I'm sorry, I can't buy that. I refuse to buy that. That is utterly ridiculous. They put armed guards around Pamela. She is inconsequential at this point in time. She can't do anything whatsoever, but they didn't think, maybe we should have some guards around, I don't know, Rick. You know what I'm saying? They didn't think about any of that whatsoever. As soon as Pamela got arrested, as soon as the speech, even though everyone was happy, in the back of my mind the whole time I'm thinking, yeah, but there's still gonna be quite a bit of people who are not cool with this. At least 10. At least. But I would say realistically, you're gonna have a couple hundred people who are like, wait a minute, wait a minute, this is gonna boot me out of my place of privilege. I'm not cool with this. We've got to do something about this. At least a few of them. You're telling me this world building was so weak, he's just like, yeah, I drastically changed the whole structure of a 50,000 strong community in minutes, in a matter of minutes, in one speech, and I'm gonna walk away without even thinking anyone's gonna harm me. Yet I know in my own community, where people who lived with me, who got to know me, they tried to kill me in my own community just like 40 issues ago, just a little bit ago. They tried to beat me to death. You know what I'm saying? Like, what the actual fuck? Anyhow, that is why I count this issue a beautiful disaster. Now, can Rick live? Just simply no. If Rick lives, it would be plot armor so thick, it would probably be the moment where The Walking Dead jumped the shark so high, another shark jumped out of the water and ate him. That would be utterly ridiculous. He was shot square in the chest. He's bleeding out his mouth. Just for realism's sake, the only time you can get shot with blood coming out of your mouth is if you got blood pouring into your lungs. From what I understand of the human anatomy, you'd have to get shot in your lung. But he was only drawn like that with blood coming out of his mouth to match it with the cover, so maybe we can cut him a little slack. But he was shot square in his chest, all right? And your heart isn't all the way to the left side. It's actually just like a touch to the left. So he was almost definitely shot in the heart. Realistically, he should probably die within 30 seconds, unless they try saying, oh my God, it just missed his heart. Did it hit his spine? I mean, where did it go? Because that was pretty much a kill shot. Not only that, if Kirkman knew ahead of time that Rick would survive this, I doubt he would finish off or seemingly finish off his story arc, because this is a big thing. This went from a character who was just a cop, living his life, the chaos in the world, and you got to understand, Rick, in a long storytelling, you're going to have multiple story arcs. He's a dynamic character. He's a character who's going to change throughout, and you're going to have multiple mini arcs as well as one main arc. So one of the main arcs here is the fact that he went from a nice guy who preserved the law to saying no. In order to keep our shit safe, in order to survive, in order to protect each other, we need to be savages when we need to be. Forget living how we used to live. There's no hope for that. To coming all the way around and saying, no, we've done it. There is hope. I was wrong. Yada, yada, yada. That is the big change without going into all the finer details. I don't think Kirkman would write out his arc, again, in a way that is kind of beautiful if it was just a fake out. So yeah, again, I think this issue perfectly put as a beautiful disaster. If you want to go back and read the other issues, you can compare this directly to issue 24. That's where he said, we are the Walking Dead. And then go ahead and read this and you can see the full similarities between his two speeches. Before we close it out, I should also mention that I honestly don't know where I stand with the Walking Dead comic. Rick is my all-time favorite, to the point where once he's gone, my interest is going to be hurt. I'm not throwing it out. I'm not giving up on it. I'm definitely going to give it a chance and see how it unfolds. Like I said, I knew Rick could and should one day die. I just can't get over the fact that it feels like such a cheap and shitty way for a character that's Sebastian. It's like, come on. With the flimsy world building in that one part, not enjoying the Commonwealth story arc as much. I don't know. Another big part that has to do with it is, what does this do for the story? How does the story progress from here? Look at that little weasel, Joffrey from Game of Thrones. His involvement was absolutely huge. What he did had ramifications that was like a rock in water, throwing it in the water. It had a whole bunch of ripples. I'm waiting to see if this has a ton of ripples. From what we see right now with the weak story building, it's just Sebastian on his own, unless we're going to get surprised by something else coming up where Sebastian poses some kind of threat. I think it would just be stupid if he runs off and either gets tried or Carl hunts him down, or it's just too simple, quick, and it doesn't have enough ramifications. It's just kind of like, okay, here's an exit for the character, but it doesn't push the story forward. So I'm going to give the story a chance to push itself forward. My interest immediately was it was shocking. As I read it, I didn't go, no, what? I just glanced down and was like, no, oh well. It was a good run. That was my initial subconscious reaction. It was a good run. We had a good run. I love the Walking Dead franchise for what it did to the zombie genre. You know what I'm saying? It made people think, wow, we can actually do serious zombie stories. Let's run with this. The Walking Dead will always have a place in my heart as something entertainment-wise that I love. But yeah, my interest coming up for the future story of the Walking Dead comic, I'm going to give him a shot, but I don't know, it kind of hurt it more than it helped it. And I should mention that, yes, I do think issue 200 won't be the death of a main character anymore. I think it's going to be the farewell of a main character. I think issue 200 will be the big farewell Rick Grimes issue. Put your thoughts and opinions in that comment box. I'm done talking. It's your turn.